So when I was in my 20s, I developed a sex addiction problem. I was kind of addicted to having sex with prostitutes. And, I didn't do it that often, but I kind of like obsessed about it a lot. And I had a hard time having a relationship because of that. And someone said, you should go to a Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting. And, I was really nervous about doing that. I just imagined all these like perverts and stuff in a room in trench coats, I guess. And, I didn't want to feel like I was one of them. But I went and I walked into this room and everybody was like just really normal looking, just like everyone you would see on the subway or whatever. And I was nervous, but I sat down and I listened, and people started talking about their addictions, and I totally, totally identify with everything everybody said. And I had like two epiphanies that really just completely changed my life. And the first one was that the more you do it, the more you want to do it. And I'd always had this idea that if I just do it enough, I'll stop wanting to do it, but that hadn't really been true. And I didn't really realize that until I was at one of those meetings. And the other idea that I had was the notion of responsibility, which I never really had before. That, that you're responsible for your actions, and that, if you do things that hurt people, like that's kind of on you. And I'd always sort of like blamed everyone else, I guess. They can't handle it or whatever. And I just was like, oh no, you have responsibility. And so like armed with those two notions, the notion that the more you do it, the more you want to do it. And that's not the solution. And the notion of responsibility, personal responsibility. I was kind of able to stop doing it. It took me a while. I didn't stop overnight, but I eventually stopped. But the more important thing was I had an epiphany about a movie that I could make called I Am a Sex Addict. And it would start at a meeting, and it would start with me saying the words, "My name is Kaveh, I am a sex addict." And I was so excited by this idea. And I felt like the thing that had been like causing me the most pain was about to become the thing that was going to cause me the most joy. And that I could transmute the pain of life and of, broken relationships and shattered self-esteem into something transcendent and important. And that I could do for others what these other men were doing for me, which was just to be honest about their sexual addiction. And to talk about things that no one ever talks about, and to make me feel less alone. And I wanted to make others feel less alone too. And so I was so excited. And I had it's almost like a religious experience. Like I knew that this was the film that I'd been born to make, and that only I could make it. Only I would make it. Like who else is going to do that film about their sex addiction? And so I kind of made a vow to myself. And the vow was, I will do everything in my power to get this film made. And I will stop at nothing. I will be undeterred by every obstacle, and I will never give up. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this, and it's up to me. It's not up to anyone else. I just have made an internal decision that I will get this done. And I spent the next 5 years of my life trying to get that film financed. And, it took place in different countries, and it was, expensive. And I needed like $1 million at minimum for the way I wrote it. And, I couldn't get anyone to give it to me. And I tried, casting name actors. I tried, everything I could think of. And it wasn't working. Like nobody was giving me the money. But I was like, I made a vow. I can't quit. I can't give up. And I just kept trying and trying and trying. And for 5 years, I made no movies. All I did was try to raise money for this one. And after 5 years of basically hitting my head against a wall, I asked myself the question, like, am I crazy? Should I give up? Like, is the universe telling me something? Like, this isn't happening? But I made a promise to myself and to the universe, I think, to keep going. And I didn't know what to do, but there were all these people I knew who had like written a script that they were trying to raise money for, and they would, spend years and years and years, and nothing would ever happen. And they would just get older and older, and then they would die. And I could see that. Like, there were a lot of people like that in Los Angeles. people who just like were always about to get something going and never quite did. And I was just like, is that what I'm doing here? Am I turning into one of those people? Am I going to die having made nothing except this script? And I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to give up, but I also didn't want to, ignore all the signs of the universe that this was not happening. And so I went to see a channeler. There was this guy named Paul Tuttle who channeled this entity named Rajpur. And I'd been really impressed by the stuff that Rajpur was saying. And so I made an appointment to see him. I went to Seattle for this from LA. And I asked Rajpur, should I give up or should I continue? And Rajpur said this thing that like really, really helped me. He said, I'm not going to answer that question because if I tell you you should give up, then you're not going to learn the things you need to learn by persisting. And if I tell you to persist, then you're not going to learn the things that you would need to learn from giving up. And I was like, oh, wow. And I realized either one was fine. I could persist or I could give up. And I would learn whatever I needed to learn from that. And I said, great, I have permission to give up. And I want to give up because I was dying to give up and just do something else. And so I did, I gave up. And I just did something else. And I made this film called In the Bathtub of the World, where I just filmed 1 minute a day for a year. And it was so fun. It was the most fun I'd had in 5 years. And after that film got made, somebody offered me money to make I'm a Sex Addict. And I made that film. But I only made it because I gave up. And I only gave up because I had permission to give up, because I realized that no matter what you do, you're going to learn from it. And it's all good.